And one thing that I love about Doctor Who is the character of the Doctor and the character of the companion and their dynamic together. There we go. Apologies to anyone who's a Tennant fan. So what this dynamic is, you have the Doctor, this space alien, who is traveling through the universe, just kind of saving every person and planet he comes across. And the companion kind of acts as like the human example in this crazy sci-fi world. But it also acts as the anchor for the Doctor. So when the Doctor is having to deal with really difficult situations and show redemption when he shouldn't have to, or having to feel the weight of the universe on his shoulders, the companion comes along and reminds the Doctor, this is who you are, this is why you do what you do, this is what we do, and this is what people expect of you. And you see this a lot throughout the different series in different ways, but there's one episode with the 11th Doctor and Amy Pond, his companion, who you see in the photo. And they're at this town in the Wild West, ironic, and they are in a position where they can sacrifice the life of one guilty person, someone who has taken other people's lives, to save the lives of an entire town of innocent people. And the Doctor says, enough is enough. I'm sick of showing mercy to people who don't deserve it. Time after time I show mercy to people, and the innocent people get hurt for it, and I'm done. But his companion Amy steps in and she says, have you forgotten who you are? This is not what we do. And she tells him, that's what happens when you travel alone. See, when the Doctor didn't have his companion, he forgot who he was. And we, while we are not aliens, are not too foreign to this concept. People need other people. When we don't have people around us, we lose sight of what is true. We have no one to really affirm things that we're hearing or negate stuff as, no, that's a lie. We don't have anyone to challenge us to be our best selves. And we don't have anyone to just be there for us when things hurt. And that is when we are at our most vulnerable. It is the enemy's greatest strategy to make us feel alone, to tell you that no one can see that you are having a hard time. In fact, no one cares and no one will understand you. Or to say, if you were to ask for help, no one would help you. You are alone in what you're going through. Or the enemy gets us to cut ourselves off and become isolated. Whether it's feelings of bitterness and frustration with our relationships, so we create distance, or it's just pride of, you know what, I can do this on my own. I don't need anyone else. For me, it's this, I feel that it's righteous, but it's, you know, that humbling where you're not really being humble. But it is this feeling of, I don't want to burden other people. So I will take this on myself. I'm not going to put this on anyone else. They have their own stuff. But that is a lie. And the enemy uses this to make us vulnerable so that he can distort what we know to be true about three key areas. What we know to be true about ourselves, others, and God. When we are alone or we feel isolated, what we know to be true of ourselves gets so warped. I have no one to step in and tell me that I am this, I'm not that. So if something falls apart, you sit there and you think, I'm a failure. And you have no one who can come alongside you and say, I see you, I know you, I go through life with you, and that's not true. That was just this situation. Or you sit and you think, I can't do this. I actually am not capable of this. And you have no one to come alongside you and say, I know it feels that way, but I know you are. And so if we just try this, or if I help you out here, then this can happen. It also distorts how we view others. So when we isolate ourselves or we cut ourselves off from other people, we start to perceive them in our interactions based solely on what's in our head. So we run scenarios and we make assumptions and we drive ourselves crazy, but if we were to just sit down and talk with that person, we would see we're completely out of the loop. So we make assumptions of, oh, they did that because they're upset with me, or they did that because we're not on good terms, or actually we're quite good, and the person is thinking, no, we're not good, we need to have a talk. But we don't know this because we contain ourselves. Either we just get so wrapped up in what we're doing, or we don't want to deal with other people, because let's be honest, relationships hurt. They're not easy. They take a lot of energy and time. So sometimes it feels easier to be isolated, to not be connected. And then finally, it affects what we know to be true about our relationship with God. When you are alone That sentence, there is no one here for you, is not exclusive to God. When you're alone, you feel that he's included in that. Where is God? Why isn't he helping me? Or I can't come to God with this because, well, I messed up. So here I am. Who am I to come to him for that? And so all these misconceptions and this just lack of love and companionship, it creates around us a bubble of falsehoods and cycles and assumptions that only create a wider and wider gap between us and the people around us. So what do? There is a writer that I really love named Jamie Twardowski, and he has this quote where he says, he's talking about going through life, and he says, you will need other people, and you will need to be that other person to someone too. A living, breathing, screaming invitation to believe better things. I love that idea. It's so descriptive. You can picture it. What if we were a living, breathing, screaming invitation, not just to other people, but to ourselves of better things? But the thing is, we can't do that on our own. We can't do that cut off from everyone around us. So spiritually, on the practical spiritual side, what can be done about this is first off seeing it for what it is. So I just want to say, if you are sitting here and you are thinking that you're alone, if you've been feeling alone, that no one is there for you, you are sitting right now in a room full of people that maybe not everyone can understand what you're going through, but I don't think there's a single person here who would just flat out reject you if you just needed to chat or if you just needed someone to lean on. Like, you are not alone. And so seeing it for what it is attack of the enemy rather than truth, and calling out those lies, as well as reaching out towards reconciliation for people who maybe you've created a distance from because of issues or bitterness or even pride of, I don't need you, I've got this. And kind of taking that step prayerfully and in humility and rebuilding those bridges. And then finally, just praying and reading the Word. As Tim's laid out for us, there's so much about connection and relationship in the Bible. There's also a lot about loneliness. Oh my days, Job was surrounded by friends and yet felt so lonely. Jesus was lonely. When he made that journey to the cross, his friends abandoned him. He was actually alone. So he knows what that feels like. We can find that in all the stories in the Bible. This is not a new thing that you're dealing with. It's a common theme in our human history. And then finally, on a really practical note, what we can do for ourselves if we're feeling alone is to take that really hard and uncomfortable step and ask people for help. And I say that as being someone who absolutely hates that. I hate it. I'm so bad at it. And it is physically painful sometimes. I don't know if that's just me, but it is. But sometimes it's not about going to someone and being like, here are all my problems, fix me. Or like I feel sometimes going to someone and having to have a plan of attack or being able to really explain what's wrong, because sometimes you just can't. Sometimes just going into another room and sitting with someone and that being it, because that is so much better than sitting by yourself. And then also practically for yourself, just working to remake those connections, no matter how long it's been, no matter how awkward it may feel, because they matter, and they're going to challenge you to be the best version of yourself. And now for others, we can make this really practical by pulling people in. I know, like, there's this kind of culture of, like, don't talk to strangers. And, like, I sit on the tube, and I'm like, I hear, like, those loud Americans in the corner, and I'm like, oh, God, not again. And I just don't associate. And we just kind of have this culture where we don't really get involved, especially if we're not close to the person. But I really think that we need to push ourselves to change it. The worst thing that can happen to you, if you ask someone if they're all right or if you can help, is that they say no. That's all you're risking. The worst thing that can happen to them is that they go through the rest of their day and go home and go to bed feeling utterly alone. So really, you have nothing to lose, and they have everything to gain by maybe a little awkward moment on the tube or with a friend you haven't talked to for ages or someone who isn't the easiest to speak with at your workplace. People need other people. So I just want to kind of move us on into a time of discussion thinking about this. And just like with Tim, we have some questions. for you guys to have some time to think through. The first one is for us to think back to a time where we felt isolated or alone, and what was it that brought us out of those feelings in place of loneliness? The next one is, do you allow others to speak into your life to challenge and support you? Or are there areas that you deal with on your own? Elaborate, discuss. And finally, how can we make an effort to notice and reflect God to those around us who might feel alone or be isolated? You might think of someone specific or just a general type of person or a circle you're not used to interacting with. But yeah, Helen's replacing me doing my duty and passing the questions around. So we're just going to enter into a time of discussion. Feel free to chat